right, we'll get going. Welcome, everyone. My name is Tony Carcwell, president of Civil CAD Learning Solutions, also president of the DFW BIM Infrastructure User Group, and welcome to Expert Elite World. And today's guest is Donnia. Donnia, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Donnia Tabor Hanson. I am a Revit user. There's a 12-step program for that, I think. But I have been using Autodesk products since early 80s
Okay.
and stuff. Yeah, it's been a long time. I just started a new job. I'm very excited about that too. So yeah, let's get into this. What else we want to talk about?
Well, I see you got your I guess you're a Tennessee alumni. You got your shirt, and you
Yes.
got your background. I know Frank came in with their OU, so I told all the members come in and support your team or support your movie. So
Yeah, I was there.
he
That
was
that
there.
was that was they do it started out with some frat boys saying, "Can we checkerboard the stadium?"
Yeah,
And it started on a Facebook post and it went viral, and they do it every year.
yeah,
And I'm in a section that just happens to be wearing orange every year, which is
yeah,
I've got orange and white, but
yeah.
it's really kind of cool to see almost 100,000 people checkerboard a stadium like
Oh yeah.
that.
I
Yeah,
remember
it's
watching Tennessee because Notre Dame would play Tennessee. I'm a big Notre
yeah,
Dame fan, and back in the '90s when they were really good, and what
yeah,
was it?
I was
Eli
there.
Manning was it? No, no, Peyton Manning played there.
Peyton
Yeah,
Manning,
Peyton
yes.
Manning. Yeah, yep. I remember watching Peyton because they'd play against my team. So
Yeah, I married him in for season football tickets.
yeah.
He got a garage. It seemed a fair trade. But
Okay,
we've
well,
been married for 32 seasons now.
oh wow, okay, cool, cool. I think I became a Notre Dame fan '87. So yeah, I started watching them religiously since '87. So
Yeah.
and then of course Texas is my number two team. So I got to root for at least a Texas team too.
Yeah.
So I got a kind of a burnt orange color too shirt.
Yeah,
So
well, let's see. We're orange. We're the volunteers. You're burnt orange because do you remember the Alamo?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then why do they call us the volunteers? Did you see the names at the Alamo?
Mm-mm.
All from Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah. Was it Bowie from Tennessee also? And
Bowie. Yeah.
Bowie, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So but yeah, yeah. Okay, well, cool. So when did you start using AutoCAD? The very first product, do you remember, and what were you doing at the time?
I remember because I've got a bachelor's and a master's both from the
Mhm.
University of Tennessee in education. I did a student teaching experience at a local high school, and the teacher says, "Come in here, I got to show you something." They're doing their uh, fireplace drawings and stuff. So, and it was all on the board. And he said, "But we have something in this room back here." And he took me back, and here's this computer,
Mhm.
and they had MatsiCAD, MATC, MatsiCAD. It
Mhm.
was an Apple product,
Huh.
and I was totally fascinated. And I did my student teaching experience the next term. That was an internship. That was a virtual thing where you just stayed and watched for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I did a student teaching experience, and they had MatsiCAD, and I taught MatsiCAD to the students. I had to learn it and teach it. And I found undocumented ways of um, recovering files that had crashed,
Mhm.
sent it up to some people, and they said, "Well, you need to talk to this guy over here at this community college."
Yeah.
So I went over to talk to him, and he has all these computers in this room, and he had about 5 or 6 different softwares. And I took a week and went over there, and I started with computer vision and VersaCAD and CADM and Intergraph and ended on AutoCAD. And I did all their final projects for their first semester on all 5, and I
Oh
did it
wow.
one a day. Um, this was very early, very early.
Huh.
I got a job teaching there. I was teaching computer vision. And I ended up moving to Louisville, Kentucky, and there's an advertisement for a CAD instructor. And I
Yeah.
go in, he says, "Can you teach AutoCAD?" And I remember putting my hand behind my back, crossed my finger, goes, "Sure,
Why
I can teach AutoCAD." He said, "Good, it starts in 2 weeks. Here's your copy." He gave me AutoCAD 1.2,
not?
and I had a computer with no mouse. The classes had no mouse. Everything was using the arrow keys,
Oh my gosh.
page up and page down to speed up and slow down. And um, by version 2, I was writing my own menus because
Yeah.
you could print the menu out on about 2 pages.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got started. And that was back in about 84.
Yeah.
Yeah, version 1.2 was my first. And I stayed with it. I went through AutoCAD up through the years. I got onto AutoCAD architecture.
Mhm.
I was an Autodesk consultant for a while, and they would take me up and do the training with that stuff. And it evolved from there. Then at one point, I got into working for a reseller.
Mhm.
And that's when I started on Revit, because all of a sudden now I got to teach Revit. So
Yeah.
I had to learn it real quick. And that's what it seems like. I always learn the software when I've got to teach it next or something.
Yeah. The pressure.
And yeah, and I got into Revit. And actually, I'm sitting in my first Revit project.
Okay.
I designed my house in
Oh,
Revit.
wow.
And like anybody else who didn't have training in it at the time, because I was doing it on my own, I exported it out to AutoCAD, redid it in AutoCAD architecture, sent the project up to the log home design company. They redid it in ArchiCAD because they have a login plugin, a log plugin for the log houses,
Yeah.
and it's Kit House. It's just a 3,000 square foot,
Yeah.
two bedroom log house.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's my first Revit project, so
I
I really
don't see
take this stuff
why
serious.
every architect doesn't do that. Go and design their own house, and
I
then
know.
go and, go get it built, So yeah, I would, I'm actually thinking about doing that for my first house. So I'm looking at maybe buying my first house next year. I'm going to actually draw the whole thing myself. And then one of my good friends is actually an architect. So he'll, review it and sign off for it. And then we'll go get a bid and get a contractor to build that home. So I know a lot of custom home builders here in DFW. And so they'll give me a bid for it. And I'm like, okay, I can build the house the way I want it. So then I'll
Yeah.
have to get like an interior designer for all the cabinets and stuff like that, so,
Yeah.
But it'll probably end up saving money at the long run, so.
Yeah. Well, I worked for a log home design company at the time.
Yeah.
And that was back, we moved in 2005. So I don't know what version of Revit I started on,
Yeah.
but let's just push it back to like 2003 or 4,
Mhm.
because we worked for 2 years designing the house.
Yeah.
And figure out what we wanted and how we wanted it.
Yeah. Did it turn out the way you wanted it though? Exactly, or you modified it as you went?
We modified a lot. That's why it took 2 years. When we did the design, let's do everything that we want.
Yeah.
And it's really fun because in Revit, my husband would be excited to sit and watch me turn it around and look at it and stuff. And then we just did the square footage of it. And why do we need a 6,000 square foot house?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we nixed the whole basement, and narrowed it down some. We took like 2 feet out of each side of the ridge, and we ended up with this. And there's one bedroom upstairs. My grandson has his apartment, he calls it. There's a loft over the kitchen, and that's his living room and his gaming area and his office area. He has his own bathroom, storage room up there. I don't go up there. It's a scary place. There's a teenage boy up there. But it's really wonderful. I love it out here.
Yeah. Well, cool. So when you were learning Revit, was teaching it the first thing, or were you actually designing in Revit the first thing?
No, I picked it up and tried to deal with it and without any training. And then when I went to work for the reseller, I had to learn it.
Yeah.
And then I started teaching it like a couple of weeks later.
Yeah.
And I taught a lot of architecture engineering firms,
Yeah.
all over the place. And then I started with their customization.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one reason I think I love customization, because that's one of the first things I did professionally in it.
Mm-hmm.
I set up templates and title blocks. And why is it an engineering firm will go, yeah, Arial's great. And an architect firm will have 5 fonts on their title block.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's just so many different fonts architects use, but I think what's worse is a landscape architect. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you look at landscape plans, they have a lot more.
I did one of those one time. Yeah.
Like, really? And then we try to print their stuff or send their CAD file and just have all kinds of font problems. Okay, just send me your whole font folder, that you're using. So our landscapes, I would say landscapes are a little bit worse. So, but yeah. So Revit, would you say more of your background experience is architectural Revit, or you actually get into like structural and MEP, the Revit tools?
No, I don't get into structural. I've done some MEP families and stuff.
Yeah.
I could teach them how to use the tools because I had been taught how, and I would be, okay, guys, don't laugh at this, but look here, you can put this ductwork down to here, and look, you can make this connection here and this, and don't laugh at what I'm putting here. And I would just drop things in. I could show them.
What it can do.
And I could build the families for them
Yeah.
and put the connections on them and everything. I have no trouble with getting in there, but just don't laugh at what I do.
Yeah. I'm sure some structural engineer are like, what is she designing? It's
Yeah.
like that's not right.
I said, just tell me what you want it to do and I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
If you can tell
exactly.
me exactly what you want, I can show you exactly how to do it. But I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, that's not my forte. No, I'm definitely
Yeah.
architecture.
I'm sure a lot of the architects are happy that, when you did have three separate modules, separate entities, and you combine them into one. I bet that was probably most of them were on board doing something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's funny you get the MEP guys on faster than the structural or the architect
yeah.
sometimes.
um, yeah, it's a pretty big product. Civil, I'll probably say a little bit bigger product. Just so much stuff goes into the
Mhm.
civil, and just they keep adding on to it. But it'd be nice that if I had the wheel at Autodesk, and if it was possible, I don't think it is, but merging recap into it, merging InfoWorks into it, to be
Mhm.
even bigger product, so I don't have to switch back and forth, merging the SSA into it besides importing back and forth, kind of it'd be really nice, but it is what it is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so share one funny story about your kind of journey into the industry or learning the software, even any story related to Autodesk.
Oh, this is too good. This is too good. It's the funniest thing that's ever happened in my
Yeah.
Autodesk related career. And it has to do when back in, let's see, I was president of Augie, it was the Autodesk
Mm,
Users Group International, back in 97. And I was on the board and working with the board for 20 something years. And at one time, Augie decided to launch a store.
hmm
People wanted Augie gear. So there was places that you could say, we're going to partner with this company, and they would advertise with your logo on things, and you could put in an order and they would print it. But we didn't have a place that stored these things, but this company would print and just send.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we settled on a few things like an Augie mug, an Augie mouse pad, an Augie shirt for the dog, a T-shirt, stuff. Well, they were going to introduce it at the Autodesk University Augie annual meeting.
Yeah.
There's thousands of people in this room. You can't see the back of the room. I'm up on stage with the
Yeah.
Augie board, and they're setting up in a curve, and I'm sitting on the end. And I can see Carol Bart sitting down front. And David Kingsley, I don't know how many people remember him. He's out
hmm
of the industry, retired and stuff. But he gets up and he's going to introduce the Augie store. So he's up there and goes, so how many here, he's got a box of things. He says, how many here use a mouse? You need an Augie mouse pad. How many here drink coffee? You need an Augie mug. How many here have ever done AutoCAD naked? And I'm sitting on the end of the curve, and I'm like, I see and every guy in the audience. I don't care what his size or anything. They're the biggest guys are up front, and there's all there. And I'm like, oh man! And I look in here, half the board up here has also got and I've got to work with these people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my lord, I'm a visual person. I can't handle this. And I look down at Carol Bartz in the front row is bent over double, and she is busting a gut, laughing out loud so much. And I was in tears. It was so fun. Well, you need an Augie T-shirt.
What's the
Apparently,
date?
yes. And that's got to be one of the funniest things that ever happened in all my Autodesk related career. And I laugh at that and stuff. And I talked to David Kingsley not long ago and stuff, and I still every time we talk, we laugh about that because it has to be one of the funniest things ever to see Carol Bartz bent over double and all these guys out there with their arm. There
Ready?
was not a single
I'm
woman.
working at home. I'm
I
naked.
don't even think a woman had her hand up. Every guy in the audience, and I'm like, oh man,
That's too funny.
yeah, it was. It was one of the best.
I can believe that some of them probably would, because you see, in COVID, people are working at home, but they have a t-shirt, but then they have shorts or their sweats on, or just like pajama pants on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, that is pretty funny. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, it's everybody's got a really funny story about their journey and on Autodesk, and using the product and stuff like that. So what's funny, you were mentioning all these old Autodesk products, or old
Yeah.
design products. Okay. It's funny when I go to like what is it, half price books, and you'll see these little cheap AutoCAD, there's kind of like Power CAD and stuff like $10 and stuff. So every time I see that, I feel like picking it up and give it to somebody as a prize. You won Power CAD. It's just these little bootleg, drawing software. All I can draw is arcs and circles and rectangles and stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So I just think about it every time when somebody talks about the 80s and 90s, these little other brands that were competing with Autodesk. Power CAD, when I see it, I just crack up. But yeah, there's so many different CAD products, out there. Yeah, it's I should do it one day. Just buy a license and then give it to somebody like, oh, this is brand new. You got to try it out. I promise you, it will never crash. You don't need a lot of space in your computer, and it's a floppy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you remember. I'm sure you do. Back in the day when we used to do the blue floppy, the zip drives, we used to take those, and I'd work from home. I had one of those zip drives, and I'd put everything in a little zip drive, and I'd go back home. And luckily I had like bought a really cheap computer I could, use. I could continue working at home. Yeah, it's so back in that very first version, that was probably the 5-inch floppies, I'm assuming, or is that the small ones?
And you had to take them out. It was executables and overlays, and you had to swap it. It'd tell you, oh, you need the other one. Okay, take it out, put it in. Take it out, put it in. Take it out, put it in.
Yeah, my very first computer was like a Tandy 8000, and you had to have the boot up floppy disk just to boot it up, and then you take it out and then put something else in to actually run some products and stuff. So that was my first experience with computers. And I would get these, they were, handed down from a family friend, and they gave me this book, said, oh, this is how you can play games. Well, I'd spend 2 hours writing it in DOS, the commands, just to play the game. So I got to type it all in, spend 2 hours, and then you're just playing this little stick figure game. So I'm like, really?
I remember writing Lisp routines in Edlin.
Yeah.
In the old DOS days. Yeah. The dark side.
Yeah. It was how far we've come, and just think about it, just 25 years, how far we've come. It just blows your mind that our computers are now more powerful than what they used for the Apollo 13 and 11 or 11 or 9 that went to the moon. I was like, wow, more powerful.
My watch is more powerful.
Yeah, that's crazy. It just kind of blows your mind, like, wow, just what we have in our hand, it just blows that away. And think about it in 100 years where we'd be, Sometimes I think, like, what were we doing the last 5,000 years? Look how much we've done in 25. Like, what were we doing the last 3,000 years? Like, why did it take so long? So, but yeah. But yeah, so I don't know if you got Revit pulled up, but would you like to share a tip about some Revit? One of your favorite tips about Revit?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me get my computer went to sleep.
Okay.
So let me get. I work with WorkSpot. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Where's that?
We log into a virtual machine.
Okay.
And I can log into it on my new iPad.
Yeah.
And I can run Revit because it's a virtual machine.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm present with. So let me
I was telling the user group, and speaking of virtual machines, that I use gosh, what's the name of it? Shadow is a virtual machine. It's a gaming virtual machine, and you pay like $30 a month for this gaming rig. Powerful gaming rig for $30 a month. So I throw all my beta Autodesk products on there. So when I'm doing a lot of stuff for Autodesk, I just throw it on there. But so the cool thing about Shadow is that when you log in, it's using 1 gigabyte downloads. So whatever, even if your internet's only 12, you're using internet through that virtual machine. So your download is 1 gigabyte.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, let's get going here.
You can see my screen?
Yep.
All right. This is my pet peeve. And this is what people don't seem to notice when they start working in Revit families. Has always been a big thing for me. I did so much of Revit families for the past 5 years. But it's one of the things that I think people don't pay attention to when they get started. And I see it in so many Revit families. When you start a Revit family, and I just opened up a generic family, but all Revit families have got 2 reference planes in them. This one is called center, left, right. This one is called center, front, back. I'm in a plan view. You shouldn't start your Revit family from here. This should not be your left plane, because when you go to create a center line, you want to call it center line, and you can't do it. When you put in reference planes, if you want to have a box type thing, I draw my reference planes in a counterclockwise motion around the center, because this keeps the positive side of the reference plane towards the center.
Okay.
And then I can start naming these. This one should be back. I come over and I name it. And this one should be back. If this is the one place, good gosh, Revit, please, you put everything else in alphabetical order except this one place. And I don't know why. So then I can pick this one and go front. And I'm making them, when you name them, they become a strong reference. And then I can just go in here and I can copy and paste the name. I don't have to write it. I don't want to have to write things like that. But yeah, you can go in here and you can get all your reference planes. This is what, if you want to left, it should be left, because that way if you're building something, you can still have your center line. And I'm going to go ahead and finish this out because I have to. And I can do this. So now we've got the basic box reference planes in here, and these are pinned down. And if you're doing this and they stay pinned, they are also the ones that define the origin. That's your insertion point.
Okay.
But if you want this one to be your insertion point, you can make it your insertion point. But then this one, if anybody opens it up, would always have this unpinned thing on it. And that makes some people crazy. So here's my hint. Take this one, don't do that. Let's move these and just move them down a little bit. Let's rename this one to back. And then you can have that pinned on it and keep it pinned. Pardon me. And yes, I have to bring this down too. I just can't do it. And then I'm just going to add another one here in the middle. And I'm going to make him my center front back. Copy, paste. And now I've got this one is pinned. It's back. This one doesn't have a pin on it. So if you're that anal retentive, like I am, you can make it so that you now have a reference plane that is center front back that doesn't have the pin unpinned on it.
Yeah.
This one is the one that's pinned. And you know, get your dimensions on here and stuff, save it and create your own templates.
Yeah. Okay.
I started my community conversations with Revit families, and you can go back and search community conversations and find them. The very first of those were all about Revit families. There's about 8 or so that are, and there's one that I just go all over the Revit or the reference planes. So that's my hint: is if you don't like that one to be unpinned, just get another one and pin it. You know, get another one to be pinned.
Yeah. It's really cool. I learn something to do every day. I've been trying to spend a little time in Revit, but it's hard because just I got other things going on at the same time. Like, okay, I can't keep up with 6 different platforms, you know.
Really?
Yeah. So because you end up forgetting, you work for a reseller, and when you're doing support, you're trying to keep up with all the versions because all your clients are in different versions. So you're trying to keep up, okay, what was in that version, what was wrong, and what service packs were released in that version. I'm sure you maybe had a cheat sheet, something, but when you're doing AutoCAD, Civil 3D, recap, vehicle tracking, SSA, InfoWorks, and like, okay, do I need to include Revit too? That's a lot of different platforms you're trying to keep up with, So, but yeah, Revit is something I wish it was if I had an 8th day to go and include Revit in the training and stuff. So, and that didn't include Lumion and Twin Motion that I'm trying to learn and dabble with that I have on my desktop, and then also Beyond CAD. I've been playing around with that. So just so many different products I'm trying to, I don't want to say master, but get really good at it, become kind of a power user in it, So, but I don't think I want to teach it, I just don't have the time. So it's just too much to try to keep up with, But it's Revit's really cool.
But Revit is the first one that I would say of all the things that all the packages that I've learned, Revit's the one that I would highly recommend you do get training for it,
Yeah.
if at all possible, because there are so many nuances in
Yeah.
there that if you start with a bad habit, you're going to continue with a bad habit. And there's so many ways to corrupt the file. It's not even funny.
There-
And I would definitely recommend getting training. And it's one of the first ones that I did better once I did get some training. And when I
yeah.
went to work for the reseller, of course, a new version came out. They sent us all for training. But yeah, I went on to work for architect firm, doing a lot of different things there. But then I worked in the food service industry.
Yeah.
So I spent 9 years building families mostly.
Yeah.
I didn't work in a lot of projects. I
Oh,
built families.
wow.
So that's why I'm so intense on the
I,
families because yeah, that long at it.
I build templates. This is what I do in my company. I probably knock out 2 company templates a month, Civil 3D templates.
Yeah.
Like all my clients are different. They're from engineering firms, contractors, cities, government agencies, and they're all different types of, so they all need different types of templates and stuff. So this year has been crazy. I've never had this much of a demand for templates. I guess they're kind of fed up with what they currently have, or they need, modify, update what they currently have. So I'm just constantly pushing out templates, and every company is slightly different on their naming of their layers,
Yeah.
how they want their layers to be called. And Civil 3D has, I don't know how many styles. It's just ridiculous number of styles that we have. But that's kind of something what I do is, building templates. And it's the
Yeah.
foundation before you kick off anything is having a good set of templates that everybody understands and knows how it works. So but yeah, templates to me is very important. What's funny is that back when I was working for somebody, this company was a AEC firm, architectural engineering and everything, and they didn't have a BIM manager, so they would just call me, and I'm the CAD manager for the civil side, but I wasn't really allowed to do support for the architectural side, even though it was the same owner. So they had like umbrellas. So the owner owned all these, but they were separate entities, but all under an umbrella. We're all in one building, and so the IT would just transfer these tech supports to me, secretly send these tickets to me, and they were doing AutoCAD architecture, yeah,
Yes.
architecture, and so I just kind of during lunch go upstairs and see if I can give them support and stuff, and then so I asked IT, like, hey, they're asking about Revit, do you have it? Like, yeah, we have Revit, and so you're gonna install it? No, no one's asking for it. Like, they're asking me for it, why don't you install it? Oh no, I think they had a big issue when they rolled out the 2010 version because that's the ribbon. And
Oh.
for some reason, they had IT's like, no, I'm never experienced. So they didn't want to install Revit. IT didn't want to install Revit because of that. While they had it, I'm like, wow, you don't want to install it because it's a headache for you. That just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I couldn't say anything because I wasn't really technically supposed to be allowed to help support to the architect side. So
I just started with a new company, and this is the first time I've not been in charge of a template.
oh, really?
Yeah. They have a parallax template
Mhm.
that I haven't gotten too involved. I've been here, this is my third week.
Every week.
And they put me in IT, and I'm like, ooh,
Okay.
that sounds scary to me. I'm in design technical services, so DTS they call us.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I was a IT guy. My very first company when I got out of the military, I went to SMU branch in San Antonio and got certified in CompTIA Plus and Network Plus and several Microsoft certifications for IT. So that was my backup for engineering. If I didn't want to go into engineering, I could go into IT. But I was kind of their in-house IT guy for 2 different companies. So I would do
Yeah.
the backup, checking, do software installations and stuff like that. If I couldn't solve it, then I'd call the admin administration. He was always remote. So I did a little background of stuff, building computers together. I would build computers or, do upgrades and stuff like that. I would handle that. So,
Well, I'm a dyslexic, and you can get me into some of the things.
yeah,
Now, I love programming,
yeah,
though. I love programming languages. I'm working with Dynamo, and I did Lisp. I freaking took Fortran and liked it.
yeah,
But I like programming language, but no, I'm not into all the background.
yeah,
I'm very willing to let that other
yeah,
people have that.
yeah.
But there's not a whole
I,
lot in Revit that I can't. And the formulas in Revit, oh, give me a Boolean expression. I am such a happy camper.
yeah, a lot of we have expressions and we don't use it enough, people in Civil 3D. Maybe they don't know it's there, but yeah, you can do a lot of expressions and stuff like that. And but and Dynamo, it's not quite as popular in Civil 3D yet. It
Yeah.
doesn't have all the bells and whistles that Revit does, um, but yeah, it's I've seen a few. I haven't had a client that used Dynamo, but I'm sure there's some probably like big clients like AECOM and Jacobs. I'm sure they're probably somebody in their team is using Dynamo.
That's
Um,
my spare time go-to.
yeah,
I'm gonna go. Let me go see if I can find another nugget for the
yeah,
day or something. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, but what I wouldn't do, my personal opinion, is just be giving away all that stuff for free. If you're building something really unique that benefits a company, why give it to another company? If it's
Wow.
really going to help your company differentiate yourself from another competitor, then I wouldn't give it away if it's really that good. If it's something really simple, then yes. But if it's something that's saving you hours or days, then I would probably keep it to the company. you know.
Oh,
Uh,
I was doing little things like adding or the custom parameters that the company
mhm.
I worked with.
Yeah.
All the families had to have these custom parameters to go into the schedules and work
Yeah.
right. So I found somebody that had written something, and I just had the Dynamo and would go get our share parameter file and pull
Yeah.
the parameters in that we needed and put them where they needed to be. And that was easy to say. And I got it so that anybody could use it
Yeah.
because I put it with the Dynamo player, and then
Yeah.
the team was able to get, because they would go get the families from outside of our company.
Third parties and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not good
Yeah.
families sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, I figured any family that came from outside always needed its butt wiped. I just need to clean it up and
Yeah.
straighten it up, pat it on the head, and then put it in our
Yeah.
library.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was never a big fan of just go grab anything,
Yeah.
um, because I always want to just open and purge it if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So if you had the steering wheel at Autodesk, you had all the power, what would you change and what would you do with Revit?
When you purge, it doesn't go anywhere near your object
Yeah.
styles. And I want to get in there and get rid of some. Okay, it's easy to get rid of the ones that have AutoCAD on them because it's in the
Yeah.
imported ones. But if I go to delete one, even it doesn't tell me if it's used or not. It goes, okay, fine, we're out of here. And I'm like,
Yeah.
can you got control over everything else? Can't you just tell me if that line style is used?
Uh,
That is one of my biggest pet peeves about Revit is because you give me the list, you tell all of these things are in there, but is it used
oh,
or not?
wow. Civil doesn't
And
do that. It'll tell you. It won't let you purge it out if it's being used.
yeah, it says okay, fine. And if you delete it, then what are those lines that are in there? What do they go to? What do
Yeah.
they become? You know,
Yeah.
they just become line. You know,
Set to
just
continuous. That's it. Yeah. Line.
you've got it's a database.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
why
funny.
can't you just
Yeah.
yeah? That's my biggest pet peeve that I have with them
Yeah.
because I like to clean it up. I like things cleaned up, purged, and put
How
a
about
bow on it.
how about versions that go back and forth? I've heard these always nightmares about
That's yeah,
version
going backwards.
problems.
Just I guess I just fell into um, the ranks and drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
You can't go back. You just can't go back. Just yeah, you just can't go back.
That's the big surprising thing for me. For the
It
civil, we can go
was
back several versions up to 18 when
yeah.
pretty much almost no more problems. But I'm surprised Revit is still, I don't know if they're still having that issue, but
Well, that's the first surprise. Anybody come from AutoCAD, that's the first thing you go, you know what? You can't go back. You can't you can't go back. Yeah.
yeah.
But I have been assimilated, I guess, because I just came to the realization you can't go back.
Assimilated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always built families in the lowest common denominator, the
Yeah.
lowest version that we had. So you always build because you always bring them up. But that kept me in like release 2018 when everybody's
Mhm.
working on 2022. Um, so I had to build down there. So I had to support
Yeah, that
all the
could be a
versions.
problem because if you're got other outside third party engineering or companies, agencies, let's say you're doing the structural in Revit 2023, and then the other part of the team is another company that's the structural
Yeah.
engineer, and he's got Revit 20, you can't be sharing it back and forth, right?
Right.
That's a big problem,
It's no, somebody's got to just come on up. You just
Yeah.
have to come on up. And as in food service, we were the last person invited to the dance.
Yeah.
So we could be on a project that was in 2018 because the architect never wanted to upgrade it.
Yeah.
They've been in this project for a year and a half, and then they decided to bring food service in. Well, now that I'm on the architectural side, it's still the same way when I get a tech support call. First thing I ask is, what version are you in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you just get used to that idea of
Yeah.
you can't go back. So just tell me where you are and we'll start there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'm sure you've heard stories when you're like talking about versions doing support and you'll get a call like, hey, I'm in version 2006. I'm like, what? I get calls sometimes for, some people ask me like, hey, I need support. I'm using AutoCAD 2009. I'm like, what? You don't want to upgrade? Like, no, I don't want to upgrade. This is great. What I have, Autodesk won't help me. Like, yeah, they don't provide service till 2009,
Yeah.
So what are you trying to do? So, and it's interesting because I had one client, he had a system. He had a good system. He was a home builder building homes, and he was forced to upgrade. Then he asked me, "I want you to make it look just like 2009." Like, really? You don't want to look at the new features and the tools? No, turn all that off. So I basically had to turn off the ribbon, put all the classic toolbars back in, and make it all run like he had it in 2009. I'm like, wow, okay. And I said, you don't want me to just show you some of the cool features that could really benefit you? No, I'm not interested. I'm like, okay. So since not broken, I guess, yeah. I'm like,
I would get, when I would teach classes and have the architects and stuff come in for classes, I'd ask everybody to put their phone up on the table. That's just because I don't want you looking at stuff. Well, at some point, if I would get, well, I want it to do da 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 da. I want to go back to da 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 da. I would go over and I'd pick up their phone and I go, okay, so let me have this. Can you work without it? Can you deal without it?
yeah,
You learned to do something new,
yeah,
didn't you? Let's
yeah.
try it with this now.
Put the rotary phone right in front of him.
Yeah, well, well, that's because you're not allowed to say things to them like, well, you used to wet your pants too. You got over that, right?
Yeah, you got up for that.
No,
Yeah.
I went to the cell phone. Yeah.
It's funny, speaking of cell phone, I bet you if we took everybody's phones away, you could probably only remember one number on the phone. Back in the rotary phone, I had like 20 numbers saved in my head, and I'm just,
I know my
so
husband's number. I don't know my grandson's number because I have him on. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's how things have changed. We're pretty much using less of our minds, I guess. So
No, I'm filling it with dynamo or something.
yeah, you can fill it with other things and stuff.
Yeah.
Watching Shark Week,
Oh, please no.
But yeah, my parents had a little rotary phone for the longest time. I had to buy them new phones. Like, no, we're getting rid of this.
Yeah, I had to get my husband off a flip phone.
Yeah.
And basically the only thing he can do on his phone is answer phone calls and make phone calls.
My parents, my dad got a brand new phone, showed him how to do it. That's all he does. It just calls and that's it. He doesn't use anything else.
Yeah.
Like, look, I tried to video call you. Like, I didn't know how to use it. Like, I showed you every time I came home. So
yeah.
But yeah. So outside of your job, are you part of any kind of organization, groups? Do you do any functions? Do stuff with your kids, stuff with church, anything like that?
Let's see, there's outside of work.
Yeah.
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 I'm involved with several groups that we chat.
Yeah.
I'm involved with your group, the DF. Don't ask me to do that. The letters of
How
it.
about outside the Autodesk industry?
Oh, outside the Autodesk
outside of work in
industry.
Autodesk industry. Like a good example, like some of our members that we were heavily involved with the Boys and Girl Scouts because of their kids, so they were very involved with that.
I'm a band mom.
They were involved in a lot of us church functions and organizations, and other ones were members to other organizations around their community. So
I'm a band mom.
Yeah.
I'm raising my grandson who's 17, who came home when he was 9 and told me, he says, you need to buy me a trumpet. I says, that's one thing you really don't want to hear from a 9-year-old. Yeah, a trumpet. I said, why do I need to buy you a trumpet? He said, because I'm going to go to college on a band scholarship.
Yeah.
It's got to pay my way to college. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, I'll save you money.
Well, that's okay. At 10, he already knew he was going to go into engineering.
Yeah.
He had a list of things he was going to invent, and he came to me crying because on his list was a wheelchair that would stand a child up because he wants to deal with things for kids. And he found out that was already invented. And he said, I was going to invent that. But no, he is very heavily involved in the band. I don't miss any of his shows. I don't miss any of his competitions. We're going to football game tonight. He is the band captain his senior year
Oh,
in
cool.
college or high school, and he hopes to get into the Pride of the Southland Marching Band
There
from
we go.
Tennessee.
I
You have
played
to
the
do it that way.
trombone in high school.
Well, this you have to do it. The Pride of the Southland Marching Band. That's what it has to be. Yeah. And he's hoping to do that.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's good.
involved with helping out with the band and
That's good. There you go.
um, they've got a trip they're going to in the spring. My husband and I are both going to go to that.
Okay.
And yeah, I just don't miss him playing. I'm involved with the football games. We feed
Yep.
them and stuff. So I'm heavily involved with the boosters and getting sponsorships and stuff for their
Yeah.
program, and the football program is done by the band, and
Yeah.
it's one of the ways they raise money.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
There you go.
that's my thing.
I
That
think
and
Frank is kind of the same way. I think he's doing a lot of stuff with his grandkids and stuff.
yeah,
So
and that and I like to cook. My husband has blackberry patches out there, a huge one.
yeah.
I put up 27 jars of preserves
Yeah.
one weekend, and I have frozen I don't know how many cups. I'm actually having company over this weekend
Oh wow.
and having a blackberry cobbler because you can
Oh,
freeze
there you
it.
go. That's good. My parents
Okay,
did that.
here's the recipe: cup. If it's a 9 by 9
Yeah.
dish, half a stick of butter, put it in the oven at 350 and let
Mm.
it melt
Yeah.
while you mix up everything. Cup of sugar, cup of flour, self-rising, and cup of milk. You mix all that up, put it in the dish,
Yeah.
and that when the dish is hot and that butter comes up around the edge, that's going to make a nice crust.
Yeah.
And then you drop the berries in, but you don't stir them in, and you
Yeah.
just drop them in and bake it for about an hour.
Okay.
And you put about 2 cups of berries for the cup.
Yeah.
So, and it is a marvelous cobbler.
Oh wow. Sounds
But yeah,
good. And now you're making me hungry now. So
yeah. So
my
I
parents
like to
made a lot of
cook.
peach and peach cobbler. You know, we had an
Yeah.
orchard of peaches. So and I was always making them make pies when I grew up
Yeah.
because we lived in the farm, so we had those wild berries. So I'd come
Mhm.
with a shirt all stained because I got the wild berries in my shirt.
Yeah.
This is why I'm like 10 years old, 12 years walking around the woods. I'm picking up wild berries, or I'll swing by the peaches and get some of her peaches. But in our backyard, we had a giant pecan tree. I'm talking about something that's massive.
Yeah.
And I just pick pecans. Can you make some pecan pie? And then our next lot over where our grandparents lived, the front yard, they had a giant pear tree. And I didn't like pear trees. The only things I don't like is pears. I don't really care for it. But my mom loved it. You know, she'd make all kinds of pear preserve and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, my husband had a garden for a while, and he had watermelons coming out the wazoo, and
oh,
I learned how to make watermelon jelly.
oh, okay.
It's very light. It's kind of like an apple jelly, but it
Yeah.
was really good. And I've made pear jelly. So
Yeah,
yeah, I like that.
I love watermelon. We grew it between we put a row between the peaches in our orchard, and in the next row we had peanuts, and in the next row we had potatoes. And what's funny is the coyotes would break into there and try to eat the watermelon. And I was like surprised, like, why is coyotes eating watermelon? But they
It
knew
was
which ones were ripe, they could smell it.
it was the deer here.
Yeah,
That became just basically a buffet for deer.
yeah.
His garden did.
Back to the Autodesk community. So you're saying, so what, in Autodesk, what other groups are you in? I know you're a part of our user group. You're an Autodesk Expert Elite member.
Yes. I'm also I work with the community voices,
Yep.
the blog post,
Yep.
and I've been doing that. I was one of the first ones out there. I was
Yep.
the first one that did a community conversation. So I've
Yep.
been doing that for over a year and a half,
Yep.
and I was asked to do that. And now Sean has got me I'm doing one of my community conversations will be at Autodesk University,
Mhm.
live at Autodesk University. Well, they're all live, but this one's going to be at there and people can attend.
Yeah.
Well, no, sorry, unless you're signed up already,
Yeah.
because it filled up. Sean sent out an email about the 3 that were going to be out there, and they
Yeah.
like filled up within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other community conversations out there is something about Dynamo.
Mhm.
And these guys know that I do a little bit of Dynamo, and so I'm going to be their guinea pig at their community conversation. Apparently, I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. They're going to tell me when to show up, and I'm going to do something there. But that's the 2 big things I do there is
Yeah.
community conversations and the blog post. And
Yeah.
if y'all have any
voices.
ideas, if anybody wants to give me ideas on what to blog about or do the community conversations,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it because I'll dive into anything. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, if y'all didn't know, that's I wanted to start last year. The community conversations, the community
Yeah.
voices. Autodesk is trying to rebrand everything. Now, I think the Autodesk group network is going to be rebranded, also part of that community
Mhm.
group. So there's been a lot of kind of rebranding going on in the
Yeah.
last year and a half with Autodesk. So, but definitely check it out on the website. Just go type in Autodesk group community conversations and Autodesk community voices to see Donnia's posts and blog posts tips on there. I've done one or two on there. We got a lot of Expert Elite members that's gone in there and
Yeah.
shared their tips, and also other industry experts too, not just AutoCAD Expert Elite members and stuff. So definitely check that out. Favorite movie? What would say be your favorite movie?
The Big Chill.
The Big Chill?
Yes.
That has been forever since I've seen that one.
Oh, it's got one of the best soundtracks too.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of
When
Motown.
did that come out? I'm trying to remember. Where was I?
It must have been 70s or 80s, 70s, I would
I think
think.
I was in high school when I saw it. That was the early 90s. So when I
Yeah.
first saw it, I've only seen it once, but yeah,
I
man,
love
I
the great
haven't.
soundtrack.
Yeah. One of my things when I'm trying to go home and relax is I'll go on YouTube, and there's probably like 10 people I follow that do movie classic reactions where they're grown-ups and there wasn't big movie people. So now they're going back and watch all the classics from Jaws to Star Wars to Gone with the Wind to
Yeah.
Breakfast at Tiffany's, 16 Candles, all those old classics,
Yeah.
Aliens, one and two, and they're watching it for the first time, like, oh, how did I not watch this movie,
My
and it's funny
grandson's
watching those reactions.
my grandson's into the 80s movies.
Oh, really?
He really is. He's got a list of them that we have yet to watch. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I remember seeing.
a lot of really, really good ones in there. So,
Yeah, he's
um,
retro, that's for sure. He's eclectic in his music. I'll hear Michael Jackson followed by Johnny Cash
yeah.
from upstairs.
And that's another thing. I'll watch reactions to 80s and 90s music. People's
Yeah.
reacting to 80s and 90s that wasn't born in that generation and stuff. So, but yeah. Let's see here. I think I've covered all the questions I may have. Of course, you're going to be AAU teaching, right? I guess you're doing
No,
the class. No,
I'm
okay,
not.
you're just
Well,
doing
I'm just doing
okay.
I've really got more out of being a mentor,
Yeah,
and I've got about 5 that I mentoring the speakers,
yeah,
and I enjoy that so much.
yeah,
I'm working with single speakers, uh, uh, some that are doing their first presentation together.
yeah.
I'm working with a panel
Hmm.
also that somebody's doing a panel that they're going to do, and I've been working with them on their presentation skills and
Hmm.
their handouts and stuff. Well, frankly, I don't proofread the handouts. I'm married to a retired professor, and he does an excellent job. I buy him a red pen every year at this time.
That's definitely not my strong points is the writing. I remember taking English 1 in college, and that I thought that was the hardest class to me is English 1 and 2. Out
Well,
of
I'm a
all the other
dyslexic.
classes I
Yeah,
took in college, it was like I just barely squeaked by
I'm
English
a
1.
dyslexic. Spelling is
Oh,
optional.
I'm actually
Punctuation.
dyslexic. I've noticed that I've gotten a little bit worse this year. It's been really, really bad for me catching. I
Yeah,
just like my mind's thinking one way and my typing is completely different, and it's not.
yeah,
And I have to go back and proofread things like 3 or 4 times sometimes. So I've
yeah,
noticed I've gotten a lot worse this year. A little dyslexia. Um, type one word, but it's a different word with the same letter that starts with it. And like,
yeah.
it's been kind of tough this year. But yeah, I don't want to keep you longer here, but I've had fun. Thanks for coming online. We'll
Sure.
post video in the next probably a week here, and then people. It's more like people getting to get to know you. Oh, one last question. So, how did you learn Revit? Was you taking classes or were you self-taught?
I initially was self-taught,
Hmm.
and like I said, I was frustrated and took my
Yeah,
house and put it into AutoCAD architecture.
yeah,
But then when I got the training, I'm like, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be like.
yeah,
This is what an architectural CAD package should be.
yeah,
And I just fell in love with it. But yeah, once I got the training, I was much more at ease about it.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm looking at it now like, why would I ever do AutoCAD? But then somebody gets in trouble with AutoCAD and they'll send me a question, and I'm like, it's funny how the system variables, random
Yep.
ones, Okay, you turned your file DIA off. I don't know what you did to do it, but you ran something, it turned it off and didn't turn it back on because you
Sometimes it
canceled or
crashes and
yeah.
you'll switch it, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. AutoCAD and Civil 3D will do that. So randomly, it might your software might crash and it will switch that file DIA system variable.
And it's funny though, the funny little system variables that came out. I knew all the dimension variables, what they did and what their defaults were.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And now there's just so many. It's just kind of ridiculous, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's journey's been different. Some people, I'm more of a self-taught. I took one class and then that was it. But I give up a lot of my personal free time to go home and just play around with the product. You know, probably every other night, you know, and spend like an hour or two just playing with it, you know. And then I would back in the day, in the early 2000s, I started writing 2006, I think, or eight. Started writing a blog. I wrote a blog post, and it was Tony's Civil 3D World, and I was just sharing what I was learning to everybody else. You know, like, oh, this is what I learned, blah blah blah. Um, and I probably would still be blogging if it wasn't for Google.
Yeah.
Google, I installed the Google Blog app on my computer on my phone, and what it did is it took all the photos and uploaded to the phone, and it's uploaded gigs and gigs of photo and videos. So I hit remove. I'm like, what is it? It was running out of storage. So I hit remove. Say remove photos from my app. You know, remove the photos. It deleted the photos from every single blog post, and that was permanent. There was no Google didn't have backups and stuff at the time, and I was furious for a month. And I was emailing like, "What do you mean you don't have backups? You know, I can't pull up the old archives or anything like that." And pretty much it killed my blog. I just some of that stuff was from older computers I didn't have photos,
Yeah.
images, and I tried to spend like 3 months trying to find old photos to replace the ones I had. And I really killed it. I mean, I was blogging a lot and it killed the momentum really. And I'm like, okay, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It looks bad now. And there's still a lot of blank photos in my blog website, the old website, and it really killed that momentum and stuff. Because I was probably, when I first started off, it was like 70 per year or something,
Yeah.
blog posts, but then it got down to like 12 and 5 and 1. It popped my bubble. I just couldn't do it no more.
Yeah.
Every time I got in there, I was very frustrated, when I looked at it. So, but yeah. It's interesting because I still see people going in there. I can see it. I'm tracking the views, and I'm like, man, I haven't blogged in like since 2016 in there, like one post, and I'm like, wow, if I kept it up, I would definitely have way over 1 million views, because right now it's like
Yeah.
700 and something like thousand. But anyway, I appreciate your time, and I'll let you know when I release it. I want to thank everybody for watching this video, and I
Yeah.
will talk to you later. Have a great week.
Thank you for
Weekend.
having me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Bye.